Okay, the first step when we're starting out a build is to review our design so that we can, number one, plan our CMS structure, and number two, plan the style guide. Now, in this case, I'm going to leave the style guide to the next video. And in this video, we're going to cover the design and try to figure out what structure do we need for the CMS and how to get the data into it. So let me start off with the design. And looking at the design, there's a few things that I noticed. First of all, I'm going to look at the menu, and I'm going to try to figure out how many different collections do I need. That means separate data sets that are separate from one another might be connected. In this case, we can see that we have here on the right the categories, basically the sports types. So this is probably list number one or collection number one. Now, each one of these lists has a list inside of it, which is the actually name of the sports. So this is probably collection number two, the name of the sport. And then here, we actually have the videos or the events themselves. So the events is probably the collection number three. And we can see here in the recent event that they mentioned the name of the sport. So we know that the event data needs to refer back to the list of sports that we have. And if I'm going to go down here, I can actually see that the categories here, I'm going to be filtering by these sport types. And here, actually, to be able to filter by these sport types, I also need to show the sports types here. So the event need to also include the sport type. So we have basically three separate data sets or collections that we need. One, and they're independent so that we can always add. We can add a new sport, or we can add another sport type, or we can add a new event. So these are basically the three types of collections that we need. And as I showed you previously, I usually start off with a Google Doc that basically outlines how will they be structured? What do we need? So in terms of sports, we only need the name of the sports. In terms of sport types, it also needs to refer back to what sports does this sport type have. So this is a multi-ref, meaning it can refer to multiple different sports, because you can see here in this menu that we have that racing has 4 sports within it. Water sports has 4 different sports within it. So it's referring back to a name of a sport, but it's also referring to multiple. It's not just one. So this is why we'll need a multi-ref field in the sport type category. In the event, we'll have the name of the event. We'll have which sport is this. So this is a reference to a sport. It also has a reference for the sport type. It has a date. It has a thumbnail. It has a link to the video. It has a description, duration, location, and event organizers. These are just basically text. And you can see them for going here. You can see that I have an image here. I have a date. I have a sport type. This is the name of the event, description, and then a link, I guess, to the page that will include a video. So we basically have the structure. Now this is great, and we'll head in a second back to Webflow to create this structure, which is rather easy. That being said, unlike a simple site like we had before, where we could have manually go ahead and add the data inside, that was boring work as well. But in this case, we're about to have 50 or 60 or 70 events and a lot of sports type, and we're not going to be able to manually do this. We can, but it's probably not a good use of our time. That's why if you're actually working on a website like this, what you want to do is you want to create this structure in a spreadsheet for your clients to go in and fill in all of the data. And then you'll be able to take this spreadsheet and import it into Webflow, which is what we're going to do, which is going to save us a lot of times. But I want to show you how I did this, because there's a few things here that we need to be mindful of when we're structuring this spreadsheet and when we're guiding our clients into how to fill in the information. So basically what we need is we need a different column for each type of set, data types that we have here. So this is great. We have one for the name, one for the sports, and you can see it here. Obviously, the sport and sport type, you want to make sure that it's written exactly like it's going to be written here. So in this case, for example, you can see sport types. We have the name of the sport types, and we have, this is the multi-ref. It's referring to multiple sports within this. Now, how do I know that they need to be written like this? And you can see that they're separated by semicolon and not by a comma or something like this. This is why it's very important to understand how Webflow understands this information. And Webflow has this article here about importing and exporting collection content. And they basically tell you here, for example, that if you want to do a multi-reference field, you need to have a plain text separated by semicolon. And they give you an example. It's very important that you know what you're trying to import, because if I would just have, for example, the names, comma, it wouldn't understand how to refer to the right place. So it's very important to refer back to this article to make sure that you're importing correctly. So let's see what we have here. Sport type, that's, we understand we're doing multi-refer to this sports list, which basically has 2 columns, the name of the sport and the sports types. We actually don't need the sports types here. It's just for me for seeing, because basically in the sports, we only need the name of the sports. But anyway, you can't import a spreadsheet that only has 1 column. So if I didn't have the sports type, I would need to have something here, because Webflow doesn't know how to parse just a single column. So we've got the sport types, we've got the sport list, and we've got the events. So we've got the name, sport type, date, thumbnail. This is a key thing. One thing that you might ask yourself is, okay, when I'm uploading manually and I want to have an image, I click and I upload it from my hard drive, I upload the image. But how do I upload an image through a spreadsheet like this? Well, you actually need to have a link to an image that Webflow can pull and upload to itself. You can't refer to something on your own computer. You have to refer to something that's hosted online somewhere. And that brings the question of, okay, where am I going to host my images now so that I can tell Webflow, upload the images from there? That's a little bit of a, Webflow doesn't give you a straight out of the box answer for this. And I'm going to show you my basic hack for it. Basically what I did is I opened up a new Webflow project that is not the one that I'm building and uploaded all of the images to there, because then Webflow, gives you the link. So you can take the link of where Webflow uploaded it, and then I can use that. It's hosted on another Webflow project that is a temporary project, and then I pull in the link. Now, because as you can see here, I've got a lot of them, I also don't want to do this manually, copy link. And so the way that I've figured out, or the most efficient way that I've found to do that, is to open up basically just, again, a temp project. And in it, I basically have a CMS that all this CMS has is our multi-image field. So basically, let me show you how to structure. It has a custom field with multi-image. That basically means that I can open up an item here and upload 25 images. So now I've uploaded 25 images here to this CMS item. Again, this is a temporary thing. I'm just doing it so that Webflow will upload these images, which it did. Then I saved, and then I went ahead and exported all of this CMS collection, went ahead and exported. That basically gave me a spreadsheet that has, as you can see here, the link of all of the images. And now all I had to do is basically take the link from here. As you can see, I have here the link for fencing, for example, or something like this. And then I've pasted it in the right place. So again, you do have some copy pasting and structuring of data to do, but you have to do this. Again, it's still a time saver versus going and manually uploading here 53 events and typing everything. Okay, so in this case, for you, we've already went ahead and do it, so you don't have to do this. But I will show you what I'm doing right now. So I have these 3 separate spreadsheets, and now I'm going to go ahead and download them as comma-separated values, CSVs. Okay, so now we've exported them, and we have here, and you have access to this folder if you want to try and do this yourself together with me. We have the sports list CSV. You can see it here, this table, and then we have the sports types, which is this one, and then we have the events list. So we've exported it. Now let's go ahead and set up our project and upload this content. So when we're starting to design, we'll already have the content over there. The last thing that I didn't talk about is how did I get a link for a video, which is another question. Okay, now we know how to hack uploading images, but what about the video? I'm going to leave that to when I'm specifically talking about videos, because this is a different topic that I want to talk a little bit more about. So for now, you do have the links to temporary videos in here already, and we'll talk later about how I got this link. So let's go ahead into our new project, and you can start this along with me, and let's start setting up our CMS here. And we'll do this kind of like where we have it in here. So we'll start with sports that only has a name. So I'm going to create a new one, new event. We'll call this sports, collection name sports. And the only thing it has is a name. It already has one. So I can do create a collection. That's great. And now instead of going up and opening up new sports manually, I can go ahead and do an import and drag CSV here. So let's go ahead and do the sports list. Not the sports type, the sports list. It's going to ask me, is the first row is just the header? So that's not actually information, name and sport type. I'm telling it, yes, this is the header, continue. And now it's basically asking me, what field do we want to map the information? Because we had 2 columns. The column number 1, it's mapping it automatically into name. And that's exactly what we want. So this is good. Again, I've mentioned we don't really need to import the sport type to this collection. So it's not importing. By default, it's not importing because it couldn't find where to import this. So it knows I'm not going to import it. Okay, I'm good. And I can go ahead and import 24 sports. I'm going to click that. Do you want to back up before? You can do a backup. But anyway, it's importing. 1, 2, 3. Now you can see it takes seconds. And this is great. And now I already have all of my sports right in here. So big time saver. Let's create the next collection, which is sports type. Needs to have a name and needs to have a multi-ref that's referring back to the sports. So I can close this. I can actually close this as well. Let's create a new collection. Let's call this sports type. And then it's going to have a name. It's also going to have a multi-ref. Multi-ref, I'm going to call this sport, just sport name. And it's going to pull from the sports. So it's going to refer to it. Okay, and I'm going to do a save. That's great. Create collection. Now we've got that, and we can go ahead and import. And let's try and import sports types. Let me just see that it's the right one. Yep. Okay. Is this the header? Yes, it is the header. And let's see. It's importing the racing into the name. So that is good. It's not seeing where to import the sports. So I'm telling it, yeah, I do want to map it. I want to map it into the sports. Okay, and now you can see it's recognizing that it's a multi-reference and it's referencing each one of the sports that we already have inside of the sports collection. So it's working accordingly and it's selecting the right references. So this is great. I'm going to import 6 sports types and I'm going to do that. Yeah, sure. Import. We've got that working well. Fantastic. Let's create the last one, last collection, which is going to be events. And events, let's see what events has a name I don't need to create, has a sport. Okay. So let's create a sport, and that sport is a reference, right? It's going to reference to a sport. Let's call this sport, and that's going to pull from sports, okay? And then what else? Sport type, that's similar. So also a reference, can only be one sport type. Sport type, that's referring to sport type. That's great. What else do we have? Date, which is a date. So let's do, where's the date? Where's the date? Date. That's fantastic. Let's call this date. It doesn't have a time picker. Okay. Video link. Okay, so that's just a normal link. So video, not a video link, just a normal link. Because a video link is if we're using their component for maybe YouTube or Vimeo or something like that. We're not going to use it. We're just importing a normal link, which we call video link, and that's okay. Oh, thumb. Thumb is actually an image link. So let's do an image, and we're going to call this thumb, short for thumbnail. All right. So we have date, thumb, video link, description. So description is just a normal text, plain text. Description. We have duration. Duration, I'm going to set this to be a plain text as well. So we'll call this duration. And then we have location and event organizer. So both of them are also plain text. Location, save, and let's call this event organizer, whatever. Forget my typos. Okay, I think we've got it correct. Let's do create collection, and let's go ahead and try to import everything in here. Let's do event list, and then yes, this is the header. Okay. Name is mapping to the name. That's great. Sport is mapping to the sport. That's great. Sport type is mapping to the sport type. That's great. Date is mapping to the date. That's great. Thumb is not mapping anywhere. So let's make sure that it's mapping to the thumb. Video link is not mapping anywhere. Let's map it to existing to the video link. That's fantastic. Description to description. Duration to duration. So you can see that if I have the same name that I have for the field and in the spreadsheet, it will know automatically to, map it correctly. Location, and organizer, probably because of my typo, it didn't know where to map it. So event organizer. Okay. And you can see that it's pulling the image here and it's going to upload it into our Webflow project. So this is great. Import 52 events. Yes, please. And let's see. Sometimes these imports have bugs and for whatever reason, it would not understand a cell or two. And sometimes you have to do some manual fixes. Let's hope for the best in this case. Okay, everything worked out fantastically well, which is great. I can open up, one of the events here. I can see that it's referring to ice hockey and winter sports. I can see the image was uploaded. I can test out a few more of these. And yeah, so you can see it wasn't fun. It's a little bit kind of like data manipulation, which is not, part of what I like to do as a designer, but still, it was about 10 minutes of work, and I can't tell you, how long it would take you to manually input all of this data. So now we have a pretty complex data set already in our CMS, and we're ready to start building. Let's move into the next video and tackle the style guide.